Isn't she beautiful? That was the line that made the whole room smile, and it was the exact moment my stomach dropped. Because when my cousin Lena pressed that ultrasound photo into my hands, grinning like she just handed me the best news in the world, I didn't see what everyone else saw. I didn't see a cute baby profile. I didn't see a tiny nose, a little forehead, a miracle frozen in grainy black and white. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I saw something that should not have been there. Have you ever had one of those moments where your body reacts before your brain catches up? Where your skin goes cold first, and only then does your mind start scrambling for an explanation? That was me. Now standing in the middle of a baby shower with pastel balloons floating above my head, pink frosting on paper plates, and 20 people laughing around me like the world was still normal. But for me, it wasn't normal anymore. My name is Maya Rivera. I was 24 at the time, and I'd been working as a sonographer for just under 3 years. Not long enough to call myself old school, but long enough to know what I was looking at. Long enough to recognize when something on a scan didn't fit. Long enough to understand that one wrong shadow could mean the difference between panic and peace. And the second I looked at Lena's scan, every instinct I had started screaming. The crazy part? Nobody else noticed. Not my aunt, who was setting out little cupcakes with sugar baby rattles on top. Not my mom, who was crying on and off from happiness because Lena had wanted a baby for so long. Not Lena herself, glowing in a cream-colored dress with one hand resting on her stomach, like she still couldn't believe any of this was real. No one noticed that I had gone completely still. Lena and I had grown up almost like sisters. She was 27, 3 years older than me, louder than me, braver than me. The kind of person who made friends in checkout lines and somehow got invited to strangers' weddings. She had always been the one pulling me into life when I would have been perfectly happy observing it from the corner. So when she found out she was pregnant, she called me before half the family even knew. I still remembered that call. Maya, she'd said, breathless, laughing, crying all at once. You're gonna be the first one to look at my scans and tell me everything's okay. Back then, I laughed. At the shower, with that glossy print between my fingers, I couldn't. The room around me was warm and crowded, full of perfume, candles, and too many voices layered over each other. Someone was arguing over gift ribbons near the kitchen island. A playlist of soft pop songs was humming in the background. Every now and then, the whole room burst into these little eruptions of laughter that made the windows vibrate. And there I was, staring at a black and white image like it had just whispered my name. At first glance, it looked routine. Standard fetal profile, mid-pregnancy anatomy scan. The head was visible, the curve of the spine, part of the torso. The image quality wasn't amazing, but private clinics often printed lower-resolution keepsakes for expecting parents, especially the cheaper ones. That was what I told myself in the first second. Then I looked closer. There was a shape behind the baby's head. Not random grain. Not one of those fuzzy compression artifacts you sometimes get from cheap printers. A shape, defined enough to catch my eye, subtle enough that nobody without training would ever question it. It curved in the wrong direction. It overlapped where there should have been empty space. And there was a shadow near it, dense, deliberate, wrong. Wrong in the way only professionals understand right away. My thumb tightened around the edge of the print. Maya, Lena said, smiling even wider. Well, don't make that mysterious face. Is she cute or what? Cute. That word hit me like a slap. I forced air into my lungs and lifted my eyes to her face. She looked so happy, so open, so trusting. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright, and for a split second I hated myself for even hesitating. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe I was bringing work into a family moment and turning joy into suspicion because that's what hospital jobs do to people. You get trained to catch rare things, and then your brain starts hunting for them everywhere. Right? I looked back down. No, still there. And the more I stared, the worse it got. Because Lena leaned in beside me and laughed softly, pointing at the image with one manicured finger. Look, she said. You can totally see her face. I swallowed. Yes, you could see a face, but not just one. The second shape wasn't clear enough to make sense to a room full of excited relatives. But to me, it looked disturbingly familiar. Like a partial duplicate. Another cranial outline, slightly behind and offset from the first. Too structured to be a smear, too intentional looking to be a coincidence. My pulse started hammering. I'd seen difficult scans, misleading scans, incomplete scans. I'd seen tumors mistaken for positioning issues, shadows mistaken for abnormalities, harmless things that looked terrifying until you changed the angle and the truth settled into place. Ultrasound images could fool people. They did it all the time. But this didn't look like a simple mistake. It looked like something added, or hidden, or both. I handed the photo back a little too quickly, and Lena's smile faltered for the first time all afternoon. "What?" she asked. "What is it?" Around us, the room kept moving, and gift tissue rustled. Ice clinked in glasses. Someone called for a group photo. It was surreal, standing there on the edge of panic while the rest of the world stayed soft and cheerful. I forced a small smile. "Where did you get this scan done?" She blinked. "At that boutique clinic in Fairview, the one with the 3D package? Why?" Boutique clinic, not hospital imaging, not her OB's office. Something in my chest tightened. I tried to keep my tone casual. "Did they give you more than one print? Or a report?" Lena tilted her head. "Just this one. Why are you being weird?" That word landed harder than I expected, because she was right. I was being weird, cold, distant, already halfway gone, and I could feel people starting to notice. My mom glanced over from the dessert table. Dylan, Lena's fiancé, was standing near the dining room doorway with a paper cup in his hand, watching us in that careful, unreadable way he had when something felt off. Dylan was 29, quiet where Lena was bright, not unfriendly, just reserved, the kind of guy who listened more than he spoke. But even before I arrived, I'd noticed something strange about him that day. He kept checking his phone, kept scanning the room, kept looking at Lena like he was proud of her and worried for her at the same time. At first, I'd written it off as stress. Big party, baby on the way, normal. Now I wasn't so sure. Lena laughed, trying to break the mood. "Don't tell me my baby already has a dramatic entrance." Everyone around us chuckled. I didn't. Because I glanced down one last time at the print in her hand, and in that warped black and white shadow, my eyes saw it again. A second face-like shape. Faint. Misplaced. And somehow, impossibly, it looked like it was facing out. Toward us. That was the moment I knew I couldn't pretend anymore. And when I lifted my eyes from the scan, Dylan was already staring at me like he knew something was very, very wrong. "Tell me I'm imagining this." That was the thought pounding through my head as I stepped away from Lena and tried to act like I just needed a second to breathe. Have you ever smiled at someone while your brain is actively sounding an alarm? It feels unnatural. Painful even. Like your face belongs to somebody else. I drifted toward the drink table, picked up a glass of sparkling water I didn't want, and stared at the floating lemon slice like it might somehow explain what I'd just seen. Behind me, the baby shower rolled on without me. Somebody had started one of those guessing games. Baby name, birth date, weight. My aunt was telling the same labor story she told at every family gathering. Lena was laughing again, thanking people for gifts, glowing under the soft yellow light like nothing in the world could touch her, and I wanted that to be true. I really did, because Lena wasn't reckless. Impulsive, yes. Dramatic, definitely. But not careless. She'd wanted this pregnancy, planned for it, talked about prenatal vitamins before she was even engaged. She was the kind of woman who color-coded vacation packing lists and read restaurant reviews before choosing where to brunch. So why did she only have one printed scan, no report, no patient portal images, no measurements, nothing official? That wasn't just unusual, it was wrong. I stole another glance across the room. Dylan was standing near the hallway now, half in and half out of the crowd, his shoulders tight. He caught my eye for a second, then looked away too fast. That bothered me more than I wanted to admit, because nervous people do that. Guilty people do that too. And I still didn't know which one he was. I tried to be rational. Maybe it was just a terrible printout from a cheap boutique clinic. Maybe the image had been captured at a bad angle and frozen at the wrong second. Ultrasound is notorious for creating confusion in still images. People think it's as simple as taking a photograph, but it isn't. It's interpretation, motion, context. A tiny shift in angle changes everything. Except this didn't feel like a tiny shift. It felt deliberate. Before I could talk myself out of it, I made my way back to Lena while she was opening a gift basket full of baby lotions and tiny socks. She looked up when she saw me, and for one awful second, I wondered whether I already looked guilty, whether my face was giving away too much. "You disappeared," she said, smiling. "Don't tell me you're judging my cupcake table." "Never," I said automatically. She laughed. "Good answer." I crouched beside her and kept my voice light. "Can I see the scan again?" That earned me a playful gasp. A second opinion? Occupational hazard. She handed it over without hesitation, and that hit me harder than anything else. Complete trust. No suspicion, no fear. Just Lena being Lena, assuming I was about to say something sweet and reassuring. I studied the image again, this time forcing myself to be methodical, and the fetus looked roughly consistent with the gestational age she'd mentioned. Head shape, spine curve, general proportions, nothing dramatic at first glance. But that overlapping contour near the skull was still there, and now that I knew where to look, I couldn't unsee it. There was also an unnatural depth to one area of shadowing, like the image had been compressed badly or layered over itself. It looked almost too clean in the places where it should have blurred. I lowered the print and asked as casually as I could, "How many scans have you had so far?" "Just this one," she said. "Only one?" She shrugged. "My OB's office said I'd get another later, but I wanted one sooner. You know, to actually see her." That tracked emotionally. It just didn't track medically. "Did the clinic send anything else?" I asked. "What, like measurements or notes?" "Nope, just the print. And they texted me a reminder to book a gender package, but..." She rolled her eyes and smiled. They were kind of salesy. Salesy. Something turned cold in me. I kept going. "Have you had any headaches, dizziness, anything unusual?" She gave me a look. "Are you interviewing me now?" I smiled, but only just. "Humor me." She shifted thinking. "Some headaches, yeah, and these weird vivid dreams lately. Oh, and pressure sometimes, low and then high, hard to explain. But isn't that just pregnancy?" "Maybe. Maybe not. Symptoms are slippery. They mean everything and nothing until you place them in the right pattern." But hearing them out loud made the room seem quieter, even though it wasn't. Lena studied my face more carefully this time. "Maya, what aren't you saying?" There it was. He the question I had been trying to avoid. I opened my mouth, already knowing I couldn't answer honestly in the middle of a baby shower, in front of gift bags and frosting, and 15 relatives who would hear one tremor in my voice and panic. So I did the cowardly thing, the temporary thing. "I'm not sure yet," I said. "I just want more information." She frowned. "About what?" Before I could answer, a voice beside us said, "Something wrong?" Dylan. He'd come up so quietly I hadn't heard him. He looked at me first, not Lena. That told me everything and nothing all at once. His face was composed, but his jaw was tight enough to show through. Lena laughed, trying to lighten it. "Apparently my scan is being peer-reviewed." But Dylan didn't smile. I straightened and held the print lower so the guests nearby couldn't see. Where did you say this was done?" Lena started to answer, but Dylan cut in. "Fairview Women's Imaging," he said. His voice was flat. I turned to him. "That's the boutique place off Mercer." A pause. Then he nodded once. Something in his expression shifted. Not surprise, not exactly. Recognition. Like he had been waiting for someone else to say this out loud. I kept my tone calm. "Do you know anything about them?" Lena looked between us, confused now. "Okay, what is happening?" Dylan finally met my eyes fully, and in a voice so low Lena almost didn't catch it, he said, "That clinic shut down last month." And just like that, every tiny excuse I'd built for the scan collapsed at once. Closed clinics don't usually hand out clean, perfect scans. That thought hit me so hard it almost felt spoken out loud. I didn't react immediately. I couldn't. Because Lena was still right there, looking between us with growing confusion. her smile slowly fading as she realized this wasn't some harmless professional curiosity anymore. What do you mean, shut down? She asked, her voice lighter than it should have been. Forced. Dylan didn't answer her. He was still looking at me. And that silence? That was worse than anything he could have said. Hey, Lena nudged him, laughing nervously. Why are you both acting like this is a crime scene? It's just a scan. Just a scan. I swallowed. Lena, can I borrow him for a second? Her brows pulled together. You're scaring me. I don't want to do this here, I said quietly. Please. That was enough. Not understanding, but trusting. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. I'm okay, but you're explaining whatever this is? Dylan didn't wait. He stepped back immediately, already heading toward the hallway. I followed him, the noise of the party fading behind us with every step until it became this distant, muffled hum, like we were walking out of one reality and into another. The hallway was dimmer, quieter, just a narrow strip of space between the bathroom door and a closed guest room. Dylan turned to me the second we were out of sight. What did you see? He asked. No small talk, no denial, just that. I held up the scan. Before I say anything, what do you know about that clinic? He exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. Not enough, just bad feeling. That's not helpful. I know, he snapped, then immediately softened his tone. I know, I didn't like it when we went. It felt rushed. The tech barely talked. She kept adjusting things without explaining. Lena didn't care. She just wanted the picture. That tracked? It always tracked like that. Emotion first. Process later. Did they give you a report? I asked. No. Digital files? No. My grip tightened on the paper. That's not normal. I figured, he said quietly. But she was happy. And they said everything looked perfect. Perfect. That word again. I turned the scan toward him and pointed. Look here. He leaned in, squinting. I don't... Here, I said, tracing the edge just behind the fetal skull. Follow that curve. He did, and I watched it happen. At first, nothing, just confusion, then hesitation. Then, his entire expression shifted. His eyes narrowed. His head tilted slightly, like his brain was trying to reorganize what it was seeing. Wait, he muttered. Yeah, I said softly. Wait. He took the image from my hand and held it closer, studying it in silence. The longer he looked, the worse it got, because once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. That's... he started, then stopped. Not right, I finished. He looked up at me. Is that another... No, I cut in quickly. Not a twin. The positioning's wrong. It's overlapping. And it doesn't match any standard anomaly pattern I've seen. His face drained of color. So what is it? He asked. That was the problem. I don't know, I said. But I know what it's not. It's not a normal artifact. It's not random noise. It's too... structured. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once in the narrow hallway. Could it be something serious? Yes, I said. Then more carefully, or it could be something fake. That made him stop. Fake? He repeated. I'm not jumping to conclusions, I said quickly. But this image, something about it feels manipulated, like layers that shouldn't be there. Why would anyone do that? I held his gaze. That's what we need to figure out. From the living room, Lena's voice cut through faintly. Dylan, Maya, seriously, what is going on? Time was running out. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Listen to me. She needs another scan, a real one. Hospital grade, as soon as possible. He hesitated, and that hesitation, it scared me more than the image. Dylan, I pressed, you don't wait on something like this. He looked toward the living room, then back at me. Not today. I blinked. What? She's happy, he said. Look at her out there. And I'm not ruining this day unless we're sure. My patience snapped. You think I would pull you aside like this over nothing? I don't know what to think. He shot back, his voice low but sharp. You're saying it might be serious, or fake, or something you've never seen. That's not exactly reassuring. No, it's not, I said. Which is why we don't sit on it. The music in the other room swelled for a moment, followed by laughter. It felt unreal, completely disconnected from the conversation we were having. Dylan's shoulders sagged slightly. "There's something else," he said. My stomach tightened. "What?" He glanced toward the hallway entrance, making sure we were still alone. Then he leaned in just a fraction. "I didn't tell Lena everything about that place," he admitted. I went still. "What do you mean?" He swallowed. "Why, when I looked them up after the appointment, there were complaints." "What kind of complaints?" His jaw tightened. "The kind that don't make sense." A beat of silence stretched between us, then he added quieter. "People said the scans didn't match what hospitals found later." My pulse spiked. "And that's not even the worst part," he said. I felt it before he said it, the shift. The moment where this stopped being about a bad image and became something else entirely. "Then what is?" I asked. He hesitated, and when he finally spoke, his voice dropped to almost a whisper. "There's something I didn't tell her about that place." That's when I realized the scan might not be the worst part. Whatever Dylan was about to say, it mattered. Not in a vague, unsettling way, in a specific, grounded, this changes everything kind of way. Or the hallway suddenly felt smaller. "Say it," I told him. He hesitated again, like even now he wasn't sure how to put it into words without sounding insane. Then he exhaled sharply, decision made. "Some of the reviews weren't just about wrong scans," he said. "They were about altered ones." I frowned. "Altered how?" "They said the images didn't match anything real," he continued. Like, details that disappeared later. Things doctors couldn't find. One person said they were told their baby had a condition, and then at the hospital, there was nothing. A cold weight settled in my chest. "That happens sometimes," I said automatically. "Misdiagnosis?" "No," he cut in. "That's not what they meant. They said the images themselves were different. Like they were shown something that wasn't actually there." Silence. The kind that hums. And I folded my arms, my mind racing through possibilities, discarding them just as quickly. "Image manipulation," I said under my breath. "Layering, distortion. But why?" Dylan shook his head. "I don't know, but the place shut down fast. Like, suddenly, no warning. That tracked too well. Shady clinics don't fade out, they disappear." I looked back down at the scan in his hands. That second shape seemed almost more obvious now, like my brain had fully locked onto it. "Did Lena ever say anything else?" I asked. "Anything unusual?" He hesitated again, and that hesitation was different this time. He didn't want to answer. "What?" I pressed. He lowered his voice. "She said something a few nights ago." My stomach tightened. "What kind of something?" He glanced toward the living room again, then back at me. She said the baby's movements felt off." "Off how?" She couldn't describe it right. Just said sometimes it felt like movement in two places at once. Not kicks, not rolls, just shifting. I felt a chill run straight down my spine. "That doesn't line up," I said. "At this stage, movement should be localized, predictable patterns." I told her it was normal, he said quickly, that every pregnancy is different. "Yeah," I said quietly. "That's what people say." We both knew that wasn't enough. For a second, neither of us spoke. The muffled laughter from the other room sounded distant now, like it belonged to someone else's life. I could picture Lena out there, smiling, opening gifts, thanking everyone, completely unaware that in this narrow hallway, her reality was starting to crack. I made a decision. "And we're not waiting," I said. Dylan looked at me. "Maya?" "No," I cut in, firm now. "We're done guessing. I'm calling in a favor." I pulled out my phone before he could argue. My fingers moved fast, dialing a colleague at the hospital. Someone I trusted, someone who owed me just enough to pick up on a weekend. It rang twice. "Hey," I said the second she answered. "I need an emergency scan slot tonight." A pause on the other end. Questions I didn't fully answer, just enough information to make it sound urgent without spiraling into something unexplainable. After a tense minute, she agreed. "You've got 45 minutes, I said, lowering the phone. "We can get her in." Dylan exhaled, running a hand over his face. She's not gonna like this. She doesn't have to like it, I said. When she just has to go. We stood there for a second longer, both bracing ourselves. Then we walked back into the party. And just like that, the noise came crashing back. Music, laughter, someone cheering as Lena opened another gift. The smell of vanilla and sugar hanging thick in the air. It was almost disorienting, stepping back into something so normal when everything underneath it felt unstable. Lena spotted us immediately. "Finally," she called. "Are you two done being mysterious?" Her tone was playful, but her eyes weren't. She knew something was wrong now. Dylan forced a small smile. I didn't even try. I walked over to her slowly, my gaze drifting to the table where the ultrasound photo now rested between half-open gifts. It looked harmless there. Flat, quiet, like it hadn't just unraveled the entire afternoon. But as I got closer, something in me tightened again. Because under the brighter lighting, that shape, it looked sharper, more defined than before, like the angle of the light had pulled it forward instead of hiding it. I picked up the photo one last time, and for a split second, just a fraction of a second, it didn't look like a distortion anymore. It looked intentional, placed. My grip tightened. Behind me, Dylan said softly, "Maya?" Lena's voice cut in, closer now. "Okay, seriously, you're both freaking me out. What is going on?" I looked up at her smile that was starting to falter, at the room full of people who had no idea what was about to happen next, and then back down at the image, at that impossible second shape. And a thought slipped in, cold and unwelcome. What if the scan wasn't wrong? What if it was the only thing that wasn't lying? I swallowed hard, because I suddenly wasn't sure which possibility was worse. What if the scan wasn't wrong? What if everything else was? That thought stayed with me the entire drive. Lena sat in the back seat, unusually quiet now, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. The energy from the baby shower had drained out of her, replaced with something more fragile. Uncertainty. Dylan drove, gripping the wheel tighter than necessary, eyes locked on the road like letting his focus slip for even a second might make everything worse. And me? I sat in the passenger seat, holding that scan in my lap, staring at it like it might change if I looked long enough. It didn't. That second shape was still there, still wrong, still impossible. But in less than 20 minutes, now we were going to find out the truth. Hospital scene. The truth begins. The hospital felt colder than usual that night. Fluorescent lights, clean floors, that quiet, controlled environment I was used to. But this time, I wasn't just the professional behind the machine. I was invested. Personally, that changes everything. My colleague, Erin, 32, met us in imaging. She gave me a look, half concern, half curiosity, but didn't ask questions in front of Lena. "Let's get you comfortable," she said gently. Lena nodded, climbing onto the exam bed. I stood beside the machine, forcing myself into routine. Gel, probe, screen, heartbeat first, strong, steady, a small, immediate release of tension. "See?" Lena said softly, glancing at Dylan. "She's okay." "Let's just take a full look," I said. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. And I began the scan. Standard sweeps, head, spine, torso, everything. Normal. Perfect even. Which didn't make sense. Not yet. I adjusted the angle, slowed down, focused on the cranial region. This was the moment. The one everything had been building toward. I tilted the probe slightly and froze. Because there was nothing there. No second shape. No overlapping skull. No unnatural shadow. Just one fetus. One perfectly formed head. Exactly where it should be. Logical payoff. The truth revealed. I checked again. Different angle, different depth. Zoomed in, out, back again. Nothing. It was gone. Or more accurately, it had never been there. A slow realization settled in. Not relief, not yet. Understanding. I reached for the printed scan from the clinic and placed it beside the live imaging, side by side. And suddenly, it became obvious. The original image wasn't just low quality, it had been altered. Subtly, carefully. The second shape was a manipulated duplication, slightly offset, blended into the background with artificial shadowing. Clean enough to pass as real to anyone untrained. Disturbing enough to feel unique. It wasn't a medical anomaly, it was a fabrication. I exhaled slowly, stepping back. She's healthy, I said. Lena blinked. What? Your baby, I repeated. She's completely healthy. There's nothing abnormal. Silence. Then, Lena let out a shaky laugh. Wait, so what was that? She pointed weakly toward the printout. I held it up. This? I said. This isn't real. Emotional payoff. Release. The shift was immediate. Relief hit Lena first, hard. She covered her mouth, and tears spilling over as she laughed and cried at the same time. Oh my God, I thought. She couldn't even finish the sentence. Dylan stepped forward, gripping the edge of the bed, his shoulders finally dropping. So she's okay? She's okay, I said. And just like that, the tension that had been building all day cracked open. Lena reached for Dylan, pulling him into a tight, trembling hug. You scared me, she whispered, though she didn't sound angry, just overwhelmed. I stood there watching them, feeling something different settle in. Relief, yes, but underneath it, anger. Because that image, that fear, it didn't come from nowhere. Someone put it there. Consequence. Payoff. What happened after I didn't let it go. The next morning, I reported the clinic, not casually, formally, with evidence. I submitted. The altered scan, a comparison with hospital imaging. A detailed breakdown of the manipulation points that opened the door. And once it opened, everything came out. The investigation uncovered a pattern. That clinic had been creating digitally altered ultrasound images. Not random edits, intentional distortions. In some cases, they exaggerated potential issues, subtle anomalies made to look more serious. In others, like Lena's, they fabricated unusual features to make the experience feel unique, memorable, worth talking about. A marketing tactic, wrapped in something deeply personal, deeply invasive. Patients came forward. Stories lined up, scans that didn't match follow-ups, emotional distress caused by false abnormalities, pressure to return for more advanced imaging packages. The clinic had been exploiting one thing, trust, and they did it well enough that most people never questioned it. Fallout. Personal consequences. Lena took it harder than she expected, not because of the baby, she was healthy, but because of the violation. That was supposed to be her first picture, she said to me a week later. And it wasn't even real. She stopped looking at the original scan entirely. Wouldn't keep it, didn't want it in the house. Dylan changed too, quieter, more attentive. He went to every appointment after that, asked more questions, double-checked everything. The guilt sat with him, even if no one said it out loud. I should have looked deeper, he told me once. Maybe, but now he was. And that mattered more. As for me, I couldn't shake it, not right away, because I kept thinking about how close it came to being ignored. If I hadn't gone to that shower, if I hadn't looked twice, that image would have just become part of their story. Accepted, believed, final resolution moment. A few weeks later, Lena invited me over again. No big party this time, just us. She handed me a new ultrasound print. From the hospital, clear, clean, undeniably real. We sat side by side on her couch, looking at it in silence. No strange shadows, no second shapes, no hidden distortions. Just a baby. Exactly as she should be. Lena smiled softly. This one feels different. I nodded. Because it is? She leaned her head against my shoulder. Why didn't you save me from something, didn't you? I thought about that for a second, about the scan, the fear, the truth, and everything that came after. Then I said, I just looked closer. She smiled. And for the first time since that day, everything felt still, normal, real. Because sometimes the scariest thing isn't what you see in a scan. It's realizing someone wanted you to believe something that was never there.